everybody, and welcome to another episode of the show. And this week's special guest is Peter. Welcome again.
Hello.
Right. And this week's subject matter is the top 10 songs of The Clash, which I'll be brutally honest, has been an absolute nightmare to try and whittle down. Peter, just before we start any of that, how did you get The Clash?
You know, this is a bit of an odd one. I mean, I remember sort of I bought the first album. This is going to come off quite heretical. I bought the first album. I can't quite remember, but you know, around the time of you know, when I was listening to a lot of punk, you know, and I just thought, yeah, this isn't as good as the Damned or the Pistols, or, you know, it's not giving me that thrill. And it wasn't until Straight to Hell came out as a single that I was like, huh? And then it was like, I need to know a lot more about this band. And then also sort of started to have a bit of a thing for Joe Strummer.
Wasn't expecting that.
I was like, kind of like, hello. In both ways, it was, you know, I mean, he was a handsome bugger, and yeah. So it wasn't until later that I really put some energy into them, and I would say things started to fall in place for me around the mid-90s, which
Right.
is quite late.
Yeah, quite late.
Really.
Yeah.
You know, but there's so much music out there, you know, it's just can't always be in the right place at the right time, can you?
No, it's true. And there are some artists I listen to and I go, how did I not get into them? How did it take me so long to get into them? It's bizarre, isn't it? You know,
Yeah.
I got into Clash really young. The first one I remember, there was two. It was Tommy Gun, because I just thought, at the time being a little punk kid, that sounded as punk as it got when I was a little kid, and not knowing what the lyrics were, just thought, oh, great chorus, Tommy Gun. And then I thought The Law, of course, the old cover version, and again didn't realize it was a cover version at the time. And I mean, those two were like, oh, they're great. Then London Calling came out, and then oddly, I think it was about March, something like that, of 1980, I was at my middle school. We had a school trip to London, and so the first thing I did when I was there, I bought my first ever album in London, and it was London Calling, and it was had a big sticker on the front, £5, pay no more than £5, something like that. So I paid a £5 for this double album, and that was the first album I ever bought, and I cherished it all the way back home on the bus. And when I got home, I didn't like it very much because it wasn't what I had imagined. I was listening to stuff like the Sex Pistols and Undertones in particular, and stuff like that. And I thought, oh, it's not really very punky, which is not really actually as an album.
No.
And then, of course, a few years later, you rediscover that it's actually a masterpiece. But at the time, when you want something fast and thrashy, all right, Clampdown works on that sort of style of stuff.
Yep.
And maybe, you know, a brand new Cadillac or whatever. But there wasn't much where I thought, well, that's right up my street at the time. But of course, as I say, it really grew me in. Then after that, I mean, they grew on me massively. They're in my top 10 favorite artists without a shadow of a doubt. You know, there's just something about them. I think it's the whole look, the aesthetics. Paul Simonon, one of the coolest characters you could possibly get, you know, whether he's in the punk garb or whether he's got that fancy hats and stuff, and he's looking really sort of really dapper. Even Jonesy with it, who didn't look like a punk rocker, who's got long curly hair, which I had at the time, long curly hair, and looks like he could be out of a mid-70s rock band. But even he looks great, you know. They really looked the part. And I think when they got Topper, they became just an incredible band. Just remarkable, really. And it was the end, the minute Topper went and then Jonesy got sacked, which is just ludicrous. I mean, that last album does not count. Cut the Crap is absolutely abysmal, and I do not count that as a Clash album. It doesn't get played. No, it's a big no for me. So the Clash, mega important for me. Gutted I never got to see them. I could have done, actually. They were playing City Hall in '82, and I wished I'd went. I know a friend of mine who went, and he said it was a great gig, and in hindsight, I was just at that point of going to gigs as well. I should have went, but never mind. So we're going to do the top 10 after all that meandering there. And there's quite a lot to get through here. There's some massive songs not made my 10, massive. And we're going to do an honourable mention at the end of these. So Peter, you're going to kick off the proceedings. What have you got at number 10?
Right. I'm going in with This Is Radio Clash.
Oh, right, okay.
It's a very standard Clash political song, but it's just got that groove. They are one of the bands that make me want to dance more than any other. It's just got such an incredible hook to it. And I know that there's two versions of it, the Radio Clash with slight sort of remix, different vocals. And I didn't realize that they were, when it came out as a single, it was supposed to be flipped and played. It was supposed to be like one song, that which, as you know, I love that kind of shit. And I think it sounds as fresh today as it did then.
It was really cutting edge, wasn't it? I mean, the rap stuff, rap crossover was just coming in. Obviously, Blondie, it was huge with Rapture. And,
yes.
Chic sort of started the whole rap thing off of people just sort of rapping over the top of their records, and James Brown. But, this is one of the real early ones. It doesn't get mentioned very much.
And it's one of the first ones that started to, when I was slightly confused by the twist from punk into the kind of dub and the reggae stuff, it was one of the first ones that kind of like, okay, I think this picture's coming into focus. And then when it did, I'm like, oh fuck yes, yes. And it just opened a whole world to me, to the point now where, if I put the Clash on, I'm gonna put the dub stuff on. So that's my number 10. This is Radio.
Yeah. Good choice, different choice as well. My number 10 is Guns of Brixton.
Right.
Written by Paul Simonon about police harassment in Brixton. It's quite pertinent. I lived in Brixton for a short while in the mid-90s. So it has a special place for me. I lived in a place called Lambert Road, halfway up the hill. The song was written 2 years before the riots, and it almost predicts it in some respects, doesn't it? Because it went off like a tinderbox in 1981, about the disenfranchisement of young men, black men in most cases, but young men, and all the police harassment that was going on. Of course, got to number 1, didn't it, in 1990 with a dub remix by Beats International with Dub Be Good to Me, with their Fat Boy Slim remix.
Yeah.
Which is odd. I couldn't get over it when I heard it. I just heard the scratch at the beginning and then the bass. Oh, wow, that's unusual. When they played it live, I think was it Strummer played bass on it, and Simonon used to play the guitar on it, from what I recall.
Oh.
But it's, obviously Simonon on bass on the recording. It's a great song. It's got a message in it. And it's got a real groove. I just love it. When I hear it, you just hear that big, fat, heavy dub bass. And I just think, oh, that just sounds magnificent.
Mhm.
So it's my one unusual selection that's not written by Strummer or Jones, and this is the one for me. So yeah, in at number 10, Guns of Brixton, classic. What
Good
have we got
choice.
number 9?
Right, number 9. I've got Rudy Can't Fail. And again, I'd see it as a complete dance classic, you know. But I like that it's about rebellious youth. I know that I think, like when I was doing my research, it was sort of about Jamaican rebellion youth sort of standing up to their elders and what have you. But the line, I know that my life makes you nervous, but I tell you I can't live in service, was just really, you know, that was just a kind of crucial thing to me. And yeah, again, it was as I was crossing in, getting to understand the reggae influences and that, and it just wanted me to, just making me want to dance, and like just opening my world up to, you know, the having left behind the narrow margins of punk.
And that's what they did. Bob Geldof famously said, didn't he, that the Clash outgrew punk and they were able to move on. Whereas some bands were constrained. Sham 69, for example, you know, they were stuck in that little rut and they couldn't never break out of it, you know. Where others, the better ones, were able to do so, or able to flip it or do a twist on it, you know.
You know, there ultimately it comes down to intelligence, I think. I don't mean listener intelligence. I mean, it's coming from them. You know, we know that Strummer was, you know, a well-read and intelligent man. But
son of a diplomat, wasn't he? Which people often forget. They think he's the working class band. The other three are working class lads, but Strummer was a middle class son of a diplomat guy, wasn't he? You know? So.
But it's just, it really is that intelligence to come through, that comes through, and it's what really just sort of propels them sort of higher and higher. And it's just, you know, it's just one of those songs that it just makes me want to fucking dance.
It's great, and the brass is fantastic on it.
Yeah. Yeah, evidently there's a restaurant somewhere in New York called Rudy's Can't Fail.
Is that right? Oh, that's
yeah,
quite cool.
Yeah, that I think that came up on Wikipedia or something like that while I was snooping around. So yeah, so yeah, that's my number 9.
Excellent choice. My number 9, and I've changed it. I was going to go with Somebody Got Murdered, but I've moved it. It's gone, and I've gone with Ginny Jones. Opening Gambit, the first album. I just love the drum opening. It's absolutely sensational with Terry Chimes on drums. The guitars kick in the driving bass. It's just got a fantastic groove to it. It's just sets out their manifesto almost immediately with the opening chords of "This is us, this is what we do," and it just sounds amazing. It's still, even to this day, it's one of the greatest opening tracks I can think of. Stick it on, you go, oh my god, that's just fantastic. Ginny Jones was a cabaret singer stroke vice queen. It's got written down here. She was controversial. She turned up at a premiere once in a topless dress, which I think, no, that was great. She was arrested and jailed in '73. She ran a brothel. Apparently it's saying, yeah, claims she perverted the course of justice. I don't know. But yeah, good for her, exactly. And later on, oddly, she recorded the Clash under the name of The Lash. It was the Clash and the Blockheads, because Mickey Gallagher, of course, famously played with the Clash, as did Norman Watt-Roy. Of course, he was on the Magnificent Seven. He was the bass player on it. So So yeah, she later recorded with them. It's just a truly great song, really catchy.
Mhm.
And as I say, it's got that ethos. It tells you immediately what type of record you're going to be listening to, and realizing it is a life-changing record the minute you hear it. Just fantastic song. Ginny Jones, number 9 for me.
You know,
So
they do fantastic. They open tracks.
yeah, they do, don't they?
So well.
Yeah.
I mean, later on, I talk about that in some of mine. And
So do
yeah,
I, funnily enough.
you know, yeah, it's just so many of their songs. They've got you in the first 5
Yeah.
seconds. Like, what the hell, you know?
Yeah,
So
it's hard
yeah,
to think of many other bands who've got as good a set of openers as the Clash. Yeah, there are a couple I would put in there, but they're right up there.
and Jamie Jones is absolutely classic, one of those. So yeah. So am I on to number 8?
Number 8, Peter.
Do you know what? I'm just realizing that I've actually got very few of the punk stuff in.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that I don't love it. It just means that when it came to hacking things out, when we got to the 10, I had to be so brutal. And I realize now that, damn, I maybe should have kept some more of the punky ones in. And this is difficult, though. But
Oh, it's a
anyway,
solid choice.
So, number 8, I am going with Bank Robber, the dub version.
Right.
Because once I'd gotten into the whole idea of the punk reggae mix kind of thing, you know, I was really kind of craving it. And Bank Robber is such a tune. I mean, it's such an amazing tune. But when it goes into the dub version, and with Mikey Dread coming in at the end, just like, this is just incredible.
Yeah, that's the best version, because I had that originally on I think it's something like an 8-track EP or something. It was the band.
Right.
It had I think it had Don Letts on the front, that iconic image, and it had about 8 tracks on it. It was like a 10-inch EP, something like that. It was great, you know. Yeah.
You know, I think maybe today people would look at this and look at them and say, you know, oh, this is a bit of a cultural appropriation going on here, you know. But actually, you know, it's not, because this was the life they were living, you know. They were, but as you say, you know, Summer was Summer, Diplomat, but Mick Jones and that, you know, they grew up in the shadow of the Westway.
Yes, they did.
This was the music that was around them.
And they go to the Notting Hill Carnival every year and all the rest of it. And I mean, White Riot comes from that, doesn't it? You know.
Yes. Yeah. So yeah, it's just, you know, the lyrics to this one are kind of quite simple. Literally about a kid whose dad's a bank robber. It's not overcomplicated, but just such a beat. And yeah, again, straight to the dance floor for me.
Great song. Always spoilt by watching Legs and Co do it on Top of the Pops. I think they had masks and so. Oh my god, it was terrible. They showed the video one week with a Clash, and then next week it was Legs and Co. It was piss poor, to say the least. It was. It was
I am glad I've never seen
that. My number 8, speaking of opening tracks, is Safe European Home. Production is absolutely magnificent. It comes in with guitars like 2 sledgehammers hitting you. I've written it's a self-deprecating song about going to Jamaica where things didn't go as planned. And I've cut this off the night here. The experience wasn't as positive as they'd liked. And Strummer says, we must have looked like a strange pair to the locals. I'm surprised we weren't filleted and served on a plate of chips. Oh, sorry, this is Jones, noted Jones. We went out the docks, and I think we only survived because they mistook us for sailors. It's a song of alienation in a sort of foreign place, and it's just a fantastic song. Just really from top to bottom, you hear it go. It just comes belting in. I think the only other two songs I can think of that hit you so hard at the opening is "God Save the Queen" by the Pistols and "Ace of Spades" by Motorhead. They're the only other two songs I think when you hear them, when they come in really bloody raucous and hammering, you go, fuck me, that's absolutely immense, with the guitars just roaring in, with Jones and that. What a top tune. It's a real uplifter for me when I hear it. It's just like, oh, it's a truly great song. I've not got an awful lot to say about it, but it is just absolutely magnificent. And so
it was one that I was on my list, but had to get axed for something else. So
it balances off with that punk element, if you like. It's on my side a little bit more. So Safe European Home for me at number 8.
So that takes me to number 7, which is the Magnificent Seven.
Oh yeah.
And I had a dreadful time with this because I had Know Your Rights at number 7. This and Know Your Rights, and it was like, I
had Know Your Rights on my list originally as well.
And it's like, what? So what I did was, I'm listening to them both, but then the fact that Magnificent Seven, there's also an incredible dub version of it. It's like, right, that's it. Magnificent Seven's in and Know Your Rights is out, just because, there's that extra bit to it that just pushes it over. Evidently, I didn't know this, but it predated Blondie's Rapture by about 6 months.
Did it? Oh, I didn't know that either.
Which, when you kind of listen to it, when you listen to them both, you kind of think, oh, okay, maybe somebody in Blondie had been listening, caught wind of this.
Because it was written with half of the blockheads I was saying earlier on. It was Norman Watt-Roy's on bass and Mickey Gallagher's on keyboards, who obviously played on the London Calling album. And I'm not sure whether they recorded it. I'm not sure if it's even Jamaican movies. I don't know. And Paul Simonon wasn't on it. I think he was a little miffed at the time, from what I've read at some point. But yeah, because what originally Sandinista, the Clash spoke to the record company and asked to release a single every month of that year. And the record company said no, stupidly in my opinion, and therefore they released a triple album. Nobody gets from the start to the finish of Sandinista. I think it's impossible. I think it's an impossible act to do. And it's so they released that triple album instead, which is foolish in my opinion. But they were going to go a single a month. They're going to do a single a month.
Also, it's like we were saying about Janie Jones and the others. It's one of those ones that in the first 5 seconds, wham, you're there. Like, whoa, we're off. And also the way to open an album as well. Particularly the bass. It could be like
Chic, couldn't it? With the bass. Doom, 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 doom. It's really cool.
Yeah. It just, and then, I kind of, I read through the lyrics and then had a bit of a read, and it's, it's about a kind of a tribute to your average minimum wager getting up at 7 a.m. That's what the Magnificent Seven are.
Yeah.
And I thought, it's almost like a punk version or punk reggae version of Dolly Parton's 9 to 5. And of course, it contains the immortal lyric, "Vacuum cleaner sucks up budgie."
Yeah, with that weird noise.
So yeah, that's my number 7 is the Magnificent Seven.
Yeah, great choice. My number 7 is Gates of the West from the Cost of Living EP. Again, the production is absolutely top draw on it. It's Mick Jones's description of their visit to the USA. I just love the lyrics on it. It's I should be jumping and shouting that made it all the way from Camden Town Station to 40th and 8th. It's a deliberate nod to Mott the Hooples all the way from Memphis, which has got the line there from the Liverpool docks to the Hollywood Bowl. And Mick Jones was a massive Mott fan. He used to go and follow them on tour and all sorts. So they were his band. And so clear nod. And then it gets very Springsteen. So you got the immigrants and remnants of all the glory years clustered around the bar, and again for another round of beers. My favorite line here: Little Richard's in the kitchen playing spoons and plates. That's great. He's telling the waitress he's great. And then this next line could have been anything off Bruce Springsteen's The River album. I know something back and forth in time, out of the dust bowls deep in the roulette mine, or in the ghetto cellar only yesterday. They're moving in the future for the USA. I hear them crying, East Side Jimmy and South Side Sue. Both said they needed something new. That's proper A Street band, that. It's a clear nod to Bruce and all the rest of it. It's just a truly great song. There's just something about it. I play it quite often in the house. It's just one of them songs. It's almost like a go-to song. You know, it's absolutely top draw, Gates of the West. They never ever played it live. Apparently it was a bit too complicated in terms of the amount of instrumentation on it and stuff, and acoustic guitars and various other elements to it. But it's a sensational song. I love it. Little Richard, I just love the Little Richard line playing spoons. It's just great. Super song and fun, but you know, really engaging as well. And the band are just really rolling at this point. And this is the crossover, if you like, between the second album and then getting Give 'Em Enough Rub and getting into sort of London Calling. It's right in that middle there, and it's beautiful, absolutely beautiful. So what have you got in at number 6?
Number 6, I really went over at this one, but ended up with Train in Vain.
Yeah.
Again, I didn't know it was added to London Calling at the last minute. That's why, like on the original pressings of London Calling, it's not on the sleeve.
That's right, yeah.
And it's supposed to be they were going to do it on a flexi disc for Enemy or something like that. And I just think, wow, just to have this track like thrown in at the end, and it's bloody Train in Vain. Wow. Evidently it's some have said that it's about his Mick Jones. It's split with Slits guitarist Viv Albertine, and it responds to Typical Girls. I mean, whether it is or not, that's down to the two of them. You know, it is a breakup song.
Yeah.
And it's one of the few non-political songs in the Clash's catalogue.
It goes hand in hand with one of my other big favourites off the album, which is I'm Not Down.
Yeah.
I think I almost see them as a pair of songs. Because again, it's the same sort of thoughts and feelings on it, you know, and it's a beautiful song. It really is. But again, it's just got, I realise now I've picked out all the ones that I just want to dance to. I've made myself a couple of dance set list. Actually, there's a couple coming up that maybe not so much, but yeah, I've picked it on, I've pushed it ahead of others that were in contention, just because it does just make me want to, it just makes me want to dance. Well, that's fair enough. There are no rules to this, you know, and I'm sure when people pick their choices and they go, what, that's not in, how's that not in? That's absolutely fine.
Also, I've said with every video that we've done, you know, often your favorite song by your favorite artist, if you love an artist that much, your favorite song is the one you're listening to at the time.
Yeah.
So, you know, this is a very difficult thing to do, and it's not ain't no hard and fast rules here.
No, it's not, and it's not fixed, is it? It'll change tomorrow.
Yeah,
That's
and
the
the
way
both
I
of
always
us,
say it.
if we'd postponed by a week, we could have both come up with a totally different top 10. I bet your life.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So
Yeah, without a shadow of a doubt. Great choice. Great choice. My number 6 is Tommy Gunn. Strummer's take on how terrorist groups at the time, you know, sort of would relish in the fact that they'd hit the headlines. And it's basically Strummer mocking it and basically saying it's pathetic that they'd be looking for publicity after having murdered somebody, you know. And at the time, you had things like the Baader Meinhof group, or you had the Red Brigade. Although, of course, Strummer ironically wore one of the T-shirts. It's mentioned as well in some respects because you've got the cover of the single, which is like newspaper cuttings as well, isn't it? So it's mimicked on that as well. And sadly, as a song, of course, it's never gone out of fashion in terms of what's going on around the world. It's still so prevalent today, it's unbelievable. Any form of terrorism, right wing, whatever, you know, any form of religious groups, any of them, you know, any of the sort of nut jobs out there, it's still really sadly relevant today, which, you know, is a sad state of affairs of the world. But it just again sums up how brilliant sort of Strummer is, you know, as a sort of lyricist. Absolutely magnificent. Great song. Topper Headon. I was always Headon, but it's Headon. I seen him interviewed recently. Yeah. Described himself as Topper Headon. That was new to me. Topper's drumming, great. I mean, it sounds like a machine gun going off at the beginning, you know, with the drums and the guitars and everyone piling in, and then again another firm blast at the beginning. Sorry, my dog's just come in, soaking wet. And it's again just a great song. So that's my number 6. So what have you got in at number 5, Peter?
I've got I'm So Bored with the USA.
Oh, great choice.
And yeah, it was just when I got the first album, it was the first one on there that really, in the first listen, was the one that went wham for me. I was like, yes, there's something here, you know, there's something that to attach to. Obviously, it's incredibly political song. And, you know, there was, you know, it covers everything from, you know, America back in dictators of the third world, Nixon, and then all that crap TV, you know, like Starsky and Hutch and Kojak and stuff.
I love all that, but that's by the bag one. No. I love Kojak with a passion. Kojak's like the Fonz with a lollipop. Go on.
No, you know, it was and it just had a level of anger that really kind of spoke to me at the time. And yeah, I think it's so angry that it really, you know, it felt like exhaling. Listening to it was like, yes, somebody that's as just furious as I am.
Well, originally, it was going to be called "I'm So Bored with You," wasn't it? Mick Jones wrote it. I'm so bored with you.
Right, about an ex-girlfriend.
Yeah,
which is vicious, but. I'm glad they changed it, because I like it being about, you know, I like it being about the things that it is about. Because it's just interesting, and also, you know, at that time I wasn't, you know, maybe aware fully of things that had gone on in the world, because we're still quite young, and so it made me start sort of looking into certain things, made me think politically. So number 5.
Great song, one of my favorite songs on the first album. Actually, it is a great song. Love it. That was one of my possibilities. Number 5, I've got Straight to Hell, which is just superb. I mean, Topaz drumming, that bossa nova rhythm is sensational. It's really haunting. It was sampled by MIA, wasn't it, for Paper Planes in 2007.
Yeah, so I hear. I
Yeah.
had.
I'm not into all that sort of, but yeah, it's just a sensational song with a beautiful feel. And again, in '82, this is '82 seems to be the time where Vietnam was really being brought to task with regards to records, because obviously Springsteen was bringing it up at this point. He wrote his first version of Born in the USA in '82, which was an acoustic version. And so you've got all of that and the references to Vietnam. And of course, the Clash are bringing it up from a world or British but world perspective as well. And it's got a real world feel to it. And there's loads of space on this record, and it's through Topaz's magnificent drumming. And it just lets all this space be created. It's beautifully produced as well. It's just, I think it's probably my favorite track on Combat Rock.
I'm not saying too much because I have things to say about it in a minute.
I'm just going to read what the Guardian wrote. They said the band's unity was already fracturing, but Strummers rightly called this vengeful tirade against imperialism and American soldiers in Vietnam who left local women pregnant. And he's got the phrase "go straight to hell, boys," one of our absolute masterpieces. And I'm not going to say too much on it if you're going to talk about it later on, but for me, absolutely top draw. It really is a masterpiece of a song. And I've got it quite lowly at number 5. So what have you got at number 4?
At number 4, I've got The Card Cheat.
Oh, right.
Again, it was the first time listening to London Calling. It was the one that I grabbed hold of, first time round. And the opening of it, the really beautiful piano. There's almost like a Nina Simone piece. For the first few seconds, like, hang on, where are we now? And then it goes into quite. It's a dark song, and it's as I say, about a lonely gambler running out of luck. And there was the line in it that I just think was so beautiful, was he only wanted more time away from the darkest door, but his luck gave in as the dawn light crept in. And I just think, it's just, the gambler could really sort of be any of us, maybe the gambler is kind of a metaphor anyway, really, the whole thing of life being a gamble, really. It's just, and I think the important part of that lyric is wanting more time away from the darkest door. It's like, oof, that's quite painful. And evidently in interviews around that time, Joe Strummer had said that he'd been reading a lot of Sylvia Plath. And
right. So makes sense, that and Bell Jar and all that sort of stuff, yeah.
Yes, but it was so beautiful. And I think it's an odd track on London Calling. I put it in with Lost in the Supermarket and The Right Profile, in being like 3 weird little ones that...
Little vignettes.
Everything works on that album.
Yeah.
But
Lost in the Supermarket, Strummer wrote that. Jones sings it, but Strummer wrote it. I always thought it was the other way around. But I read recently Mick Jones' interview, and he said he once thought that such and such, and he goes, actually, yeah, Joe wrote Lost in the Supermarket, which I was really quite taken aback by.
Another one that that could have been number 4 as well was The Right Profile, because it's about Montgomery Clift, and I was obsessed with Montgomery Clift, just really obsessed. Anyway, so yeah, there you go, number 4, The Card Cheat.
Yeah, I mean, the other ones that I could have had on at this point, I mean, Death or Glory was very, very close to mine, and I removed it, unfortunately. So I've gone really safe here at number 4, I've gone with London Calling. It's just a great song. I love it every time you hear it on the TV or whatever. You just, oh yeah, isn't that great? You know, the guitars coming in, and then you get the sonic boom of Paul Simonon bass. It's just marvelous. It's so catchy. Yet it's a song about apocalypse. You know. I've got here, Strummer explained in '88, the Melody Maker. I read about 10 news reports in one day calling down all variety of plagues on us. And then it says here, the initial inspiration came in a conversation Strummer had with his then fiancée, Gabby Salter, in a taxi ride home to their flat in the World's End, which I think is Camden, if I remember rightly. And it says, there's a lot of Cold War nonsense going on. We knew that London was susceptible to flooding. She told me to write something about that. So he did. And again, of course, prevalent to today, of course, in many respects, you know, with the whole global warming issues. It's perfect, actually, really sense of foreboding, isn't it? 42 years ago, as it turns out, he's absolutely nailed it. It's just a great song, a great title opener, and when you put it on, you go, oh yeah, that's magnificent. It just is. There's just nothing you can say anything about it. It's become a cliche now, because every time there's a show about London, it's the first song that comes on.
And I think it's purely for that reason that it's not in my top 10.
Yeah.
Is that it's in with the like we talked before about it's in the pot with Running Up That Hill,
Yeah.
and Love Will Tear Us Apart, and you know, Teenage Kicks, and you know, all those things that are just completely overplayed. And that would purely be why it's not in my top 10.
Yeah.
Because but it takes away nothing from the fact that it's an amazing, amazing song.
It is. It is. So what have you got at number 3?
Number 3, I have Career Opportunities. Again, that was another one of the tracks that first pulled me into the first album, and it's a wonderful straight out of the gate classic punk song. You know, it's nice and angry and honest, you know, and truthful. You know, it's what are your career opportunities, particularly written around the time that it was. Yeah, but mind you, could still be just as relevant today. And then the re-recording for Sandinista.
Yeah, well, Mickey Gallagher's Kids.
Yeah, with the kids singing it. And although that's not something I would choose to listen to that often, to hear children singing those words is quite moving.
It's quite sweet, isn't it? Yeah.
But it's just, you know, just to hear like 7-year-old kids are like, we've got no hope. You know, it's like, wow, that's harsh. So yeah, it's like this sweet little kid voice, but actually the lyric is like, you know, do you want to make tea at the BBC? And that probably isn't even on offer these days.
Yeah. No.
So yeah, and I, as I say, you know, it was just first album. It was just one of the straight up, hit you straight between the eyes. Didn't need any second listen for me to be in love. You know, it was in love from the first listen. So yeah, that's my number 3, Career Opportunities.
Well, my number 3, initially I was going to go with I'm Not Down, which is almost like their version of I'm Not in Love by 10cc, where he's pleading too much to say I'm not really down. Well, we know you are, Mick. But again, I've gone with Train in Vain. It is everything you've said.
Right.
It's just great. I remember, as I say, the first time I played it, I'm thinking, it's not even written down. You know, what's this extra song? And as you see, it was supposed to be on a flexi disc, which ended up falling through with the NME. And I remember buying an EP version, which came out in America. So I had an EP version of Train in Vain as a single. So I used to have that. And yeah, so I got that around about the same time as I got the album. So like I say, I got the album March 1980, about that time, first album I got. And just Train in Vain, it really is a standout track on an incredible album. And to stand out on that album must be something special, because it
Yes.
really is one of my favorite ever albums. I look forward to when we do the album reviews, because they're all great albums in different respects. But yeah, London Calling is something really special. And Train in Vain, there's not much more to say. Topaz drumming's great. I love the little fade in and Mick Jones' little funk-based guitar riff. And then it comes in and he says, "You stay," and it's really, really catchy. I think that's one of the things I feel about is the sheer catchiness element of the song. He's a proper tunesmith, Mick Jones, which was proven later on again with Big Audio Dynamite.
Yes.
He's a proper tunesman. So yeah.
That's what I think about, you know, about with the Clash. It's like, no, they didn't just want to like tell a message.
Yeah.
You know, they did want to make people dance as well.
Yeah, definitely.
They really did. And they did it so well. So.
Yeah, they definitely had elements of that. And Jones is probably the more obvious member of the band to do that. I mean, Hitsville UK would be another one that stands out for that sort of groove and feel, which is another great song in my opinion. I know some fans hate it, but I genuinely love it. But it didn't make me list, but it was close. So that's my number 3. What have you got on it, number 2?
Right, at number 2, I've got Straight to Hell, and I've gone for the unedited version, for the full, you know, the full 7 minutes.
Yeah.
And you know, it is a painful song, which they don't do that often. You know, that you know, you listen to it and it sounds world weary. You know, like you were saying before about the abandoned children, the Ameri-Asian thing about the children of American soldiers left, and the gentrification of Puerto Rico, and then the closing of the steel mills and what have you. It feels like it feels very much like, you know, it was when he was writing the lyrics to it, he was very burnt out by the world. And I know activists that have referred to activism burn, you know, where people just fizzle out of it, you just can't continue. And it just sounds a bit like, you know, there's that in the lyrics to the song, but then the actual song, you know, the rhythm of the song, it's so strange. It's such an unusual. You know what? It could have been on The Dreaming by Kate Bush.
Yes, it could have been, couldn't it?
It could have been. Really could. You know, the weird drumming, the space in the song. And that's why I really love the unedited version.
And you've got that keyboard thing going on as well, which often reminds me of The Who. And it's interesting because Bill Price engineered, and he also engineered The Who for a bit at the time. And it's almost got that little feel going on as well. So there's definitely bits of that. But The Dreaming's a good shout, actually. Yeah.
No, it's just lovely and spacious. And and so that's why it is my number 2.
Yeah, well, it's a great song. It's a terrific choice. My number 2 is Stay Free, another Mick Jones song. I just love the story about Mick Jones talking to his mate, Robin Crocker, also known as Robin Banks, who after a spot of robbery did bird, went to prison and was subsequently released. And the song's all about that. And Robin Crocker, I've got a statement here which he wrote. He said, "I fell in love with a bunch of people and decided to rob some banks. I ended up in the Old Bailey. It was like being back in a school office. I ended up in maximum security jail on the Isle of Wight. And by the time I got out, Mick had formed the Clash. One evening, he came over with an acoustic and played me Stay Free. Somebody once said to me, it's the most outstanding heterosexual male-on-male love song. And there's a lot of truth in that. And there is, I think there really is. He says it's a memento of a glorious band, a glorious time, and a glorious friendship. Unfortunately, I didn't stay free. I did a wages snatch in Stockholm and got banged up again. I mean, I love the lyrics are great. You know, we'll go out the town, we'll burn it fucking down to a cinder. It's just a glorified song about friendship and love of a friend. And me and my mate Simon, we used to go to this horrible pub up where we lived when we were kids, the Windake, bloody horrible. And we'd go in there and we'd be playing pool and we'd be putting this one on, and sometimes got murdered as well, be the other one that would put on the jukebox, be bloody blasting. And people in the bar would all be doing drugs in the background. They were flipping massive joints and all sorts. And we would just be laughing whilst we were playing pool, watching what's going on. And it just reminds me of that as well, that friendship element, that moment that you share with somebody, you know, and that joint moment of just enjoying being with somebody else, and the laughter and the sort of the whole banter of it all. We just look and laugh. It was just crazy. You just think,
what the kids
this is crazy.
What the kids call, I believe, a bromance.
Yeah, it is the phrase, isn't it? Yeah, a bromance. That's definitely the phrase. But I just think it's a great song, and as they say, they mention it in there as well. And Jones sums it all up. And he says, you know, 3 years in Brixton, which was halfway up the hill, not far from where I lived, funnily enough, in the mid-90s. So it's just a great song. It is a truly great song. Yeah, that's my choice for number 2. So what have you got at number 1?
Right, one more. Number 1, I have One More Time Dub. Now, you know I like to pull a trick on you. I don't want to separate them. And they were put together on Sandinista.
Well, put together, yeah, which seems, I didn't understand why they separated them, actually. I couldn't quite understand that.
And I've actually got a friend who loves to do a bit of sort of remixing in GarageBand and stuff. And he's done a load of stuff and what have you. And I've given him a copy of One More Time Dub. I'm like, can you do some more of a mashup for it? And so at some point he's going to get around to doing that for me. And I'm really looking forward to that. Because, yeah, it is absolutely my favourite Clash song. It's just... when I'm listening to an album, I'm not one that usually will skip back their favorite track. You know, it's like, sometimes I feel like I'm doing the artist a bit of a disservice if I play one of the tracks like 3 times over before moving on.
Yeah.
But when it comes to this, and especially with Sandinista, which is such a mammoth task, you know, there have been times where I've played the 2 tracks, you know, like 5 times in a row. I mean, you know, it's standard Clash protest song. You know, it's, as far as I can see, it's about poverty. But it just, you know, no one really delivered messages with the style, flair, and musicality of the Clash. You know, they're giving you stuff that's fairly weighty. You know, they'll tackle a weighty topic, but at the same time, you want to be up and dancing, you know. And they had such integrity, you know, and in the music business where, you know, the best of people have fought so hard to hang on to integrity, they managed to do it. And, you know, it's something like this that pushes them up and up and up and up and up for me. You know, over the years, they've risen, you know, further and further and further in importance to me, as I think they are culturally important, etc. And for me, One More Time, One More Dub, that completely, it just sums it all up. It's a political message, but boy, do you want to dance to it. And it's got integrity and it's got musicality and it's just fantastic.
It's a great song, really good choice that. And the Clash were probably the first punk band really to sort of go into the dub side of stuff in terms of the reggae thing. Others followed them, like Stiff Little Fingers, who I really love. And then the Ruts were the other ones who could have been massive if the singer had lived, Malcolm Owen, but heroin got him. And they were also another great, they had a great dub section of the band. The band were magnificent musicians. And but the Clash led the way. They were the pioneers. They were the leaders of that whole movement, you know. And they were also leaders in terms of, you're not going to pigeonhole us into this little categories of punk band, because we can do reggae, we can do funk, you know, and we can do rap stuff, and we can merge it all together. And they were one of them bands. I think they had 2 more great albums in them, and it's so sad that they split up when they did, because clearly Big Audio Dynamite's first album shows you the route that they would have probably gone down. And I know Strummer co-wrote most of the second album with them, didn't he? You know, and there's some great songs on that as well. And they had 2 more great albums. I'm convinced they had 2 more great albums left, and that would probably have been it. So anyway, getting back on task, folks. My number 1 is Complete Control, which is Topper's first recording after Terry Chimes left. Terry was a good drummer, but Topper, better drummer. Topper's an incredible drummer. I'm going to go and say he's one of the great drummers who never gets mentioned. He can do everything. You know, he's playing's amazing. On this, he can play that sort of rock, you know, punk rock sort of feel, but on others, as we were saying before, they're straight to hell. He can do these really great sort of rhythms and polyrhythms and all sorts. What a player he is. And you're only as good as the worst musician in the band if you're ever in a band. And he brought that level of musicianship up another notch. And he really sort of, he gelled the whole band together, and he held them together. He was just exceptional. And also a very good writer, of course, because he wrote Should I Stay or Should I Go, of course, which hasn't featured on any of our lists, which, you know, is another great tune. So Complete Control, mixed by Lee Scratch Perry. He was in London at the time recording Exodus for Bob Marley and the Wailers, and the Clash heard, they were big fans. They went down, asked him to record them, and he did. It's often cited as one of punk's great singles, along with sort of God Save the Queen or Pretty Vegan or New Rose. It's right up there. And this is their attack on the fact that the record company released Remote Control, and they just thought it was laughable, which they mentioned in the record. And he said the press went mad, and all the rest of it is the line. Stereogram described it as this extraordinary airing of grievances, a desperately catchy catalogue of its many ills visited upon a young band experienced its first forays into corporate culture. The song also refers to the managers at the time who thought they would take control, like Bernie Rhodes at the Clash or McLaren. The song's title is derived from the theme where Bernie Rhodes had arranged to meet McLaren in the Ship in Soho. And he said he wanted complete control. Apparently, Strummer went outside, him and Simon went outside, bursting out laughing. And so, you know, they just thought it was hilarious, that sort of statement. John Savage describes it, instead of a piece of cynicism, Complete Control becomes a hymn to punk autonomy at its moment of eclipse. I've just written the guitars sound amazing. I love the line, the cliche line, and he knows it's cliche and threw it in, "You're my guitar hero." It's really funny. It's so well produced. It sounds great. It's just one of the greatest songs ever made for me. It just really, really just works. It's, again, it depends on your mood. If you want punk Clash, then that's it for me. If you want sort of different feel of Clash, you go for something totally different, you know. You might go for One More Time, you know, depending on your groove or your mood that you're in. So it's, you know, there are so many facets to them as a band. So yeah, Complete Control, it's just unbelievable, an incredible song, and masterful playing by the band, and brilliant production, of course. So that's my number 1. So Peter, what songs almost made the list?
The rest of the catalogue? No, I've got to Police and Thieves, Ivan Meets G.I. Joe,
Yeah.
Guns on the Roof, Safe European Home, White Man in Hammersmith Palais, and I'm quickly going to add, because you mentioned it earlier, and I'm like, damn, I should have added that one. Hitsville, Hitsville, USA. Yeah.
Yeah,
Just,
I mean, yeah,
those are some of the ones that I just didn't want to. I did not want to lose.
yeah.
So,
There's quite a few for me. So some of the obvious ones that I didn't write in, and I got like Hitsville, The Call Up. I absolutely love it. White Man in Hammersmith, where people will be watching this and go absolutely nuts because there's like there's a huge sort of fan base where on Twitter where White Man in Hammersmith is described as the greatest record of all time by a number of people, and it's great. It's a great song. I'm not going to say it's not a great song. It just, there are better songs for me by The Clash, and it's, again, it all just comes down to opinions, doesn't it? You know, there is no right or wrong answer really.
I mean, White Man is a great song. It is, but when I held it up against others, it just didn't.
Yeah, it doesn't for me.
This week,
yeah, might do next week. I mean, I love the Adolf Hitler line. I think it was really quite funny and amusing and sadly accurate.
yes.
But other songs could have had in Deny, which I love. Garage Land, which
yes,
how did Garage Land not make it? USC, as you mentioned before, there I'm support. I'm Not Down. Clamp Down as well. I've got written here. And what was the other one? I Know Your Rights. Yeah, that was the other big one. So there's loads in there. There's loads I could have had in, and some, as you said before, being played too often. Should I Stay or Should I Go? Play to death. You know, Rock the Casbah, play to death. So it's like, oh, you know, it's it's too much. And I didn't put covers in because Armageddon Time would have made my top 10. So I didn't put the covers in. Otherwise, Armageddon Time would have definitely been in. In fact, I thought The Law might have made it as well, to be honest, because it's great. It's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
It's one of the greatest covers ever recorded.
But Bobby Fuller 4 are one of my favourite bands as well. Yeah. I just fucking love Bobby Fuller 4. I didn't know them before I knew The Clash, but yeah, that's just such a great song. Such a great song. And they really they made that their own in the way that Soft Cell made Tainted Love.
It is, yeah. It's, you listen to some covers and you think, oh, what, somebody else did it. Yeah. It's
when you hear the Bobby Fuller 4 version, it's completely different. You know, for The Clash to say I Fought the Law is a bit more. It's a bit more.
Yeah, definitely. You know, I agree.
Real.
So, folks, we're going to stop there. There's some really interesting choices on there. Whether you agree, I doubt it. We'd love to hear what your thoughts are. As I say, there's some big omissions. Clash City Rockers, for example, is not in there. You know, and some White Riot. I'm going to post just here below. I'm going to show you the picture of my signed copy of White Riot. So you'll be able to see that on the screens there, folks. Next to my signed copy of God Save the Queen with Sid on, but that's another story. So yeah, so there's some massive songs didn't make it. Some huge songs didn't make it. Let us know what your thoughts are in terms of your choices. We'd love to hear from you. And please subscribe to the channel. That's the big one. Subscribe. And until next time, take care, folks. Look after yourself from Peter and myself. Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye.